Welcome back to Never Enough Novels for a quick what I'm reading lately and Bookmail update. I figured I'd pop on here quick and share a few thoughts on my recent reads, including a book that I decided to DNF and some new Bookmail that I'm excited about. So let's start with that DNF. This is a book by Riley Sager. It was his newest one that just came out this year. It's called With a Vengeance. It's more of a historical fiction thriller, so it's set in the 1950s and it takes place entirely on a train ride journey from Philadelphia to Chicago. So our main character is trying to seek revenge on people who destroyed her family a while ago. So she invited all of them onto this train ride and she's planning to use their journey to uncover their secrets and get them to admit to what they've done and basically bring them to justice. However, someone is murdered on this train ride and it was not her. She realizes that someone is out there with even more nefarious intentions than her, and now she has to kind of figure out who's actually killing off these other passengers, and she ends up sort of protecting the people that she wanted to bring to justice in the first place. I love the idea of this one, but I was a little bit nervous because Riley Sager's last thriller was really slow paced and wasn't for me, and I was a little bit worried the same thing would happen with this one. Turns out I was right. So I made it about 50 pages into this book before deciding I don't think I'm going to continue on. The beginning is a bit of a slog as you get to know each of the passengers and their history. And I've heard from a few other people as well that they DNF'd this book and it didn't pick up throughout the rest of the story. So I was looking for more of an intense, fast-paced thriller. And that's what I'm used to from Riley Sager's old books. But I just feel like something has changed with his writing and now he's taking a more slow burn approach. So if you like that style, this would probably be an interesting book for you. It's got that locked room thriller aspect since everyone is on this single train journey and they can't get off. But if you are looking for a more intense thriller, I would give this one a pass. On the other note, a different book that I absolutely loved recently was called Rose in Chains by Julie Soto. This is her traditionally published fan fiction. So she wrote a book called The Auction a while ago. It's Hermione fanfic, and it got turned into a traditionally published book. So a lot of the details have changed. There's new characters, a new world, a new magic system, and it turns into this incredible slow burn romantasy. So I know I just mentioned that I don't like a slow burn in a thriller, but if I'm reading a romance book, I absolutely adore it. The tension between Bryony and Tevin was incredible and just built up throughout the entire book. In this world that Julie created, evil has taken over the land, and basically the bad guys have won a recent battle. Bryony is a princess who is now being sold at an auction for her magic. So the evil people can use someone else's magic to fuel their own power. And since Bryony is one of the most powerful people in the kingdom, she sells for a really high price. She ends up being bought by Tevin Hurst, who she grew up with and knows very well, but he's always been sort of her enemy or like a thorn in her side. So she is less than thrilled to find out that he's the one who bought her. However, as time goes by, Bryony realizes that her understanding of Tevin and his family isn't exactly the truth. They are secretly working against the evil woman who is in charge and doing whatever they can behind the scenes. So Bryony finds out that she's actually maybe able to trust him and his family, and she might be able to work with them. This just was an absolutely incredible romantasy. It's one of my favorites of the year for sure. I loved Bryony and Tevin's interactions. We get their current day interactions as well as flashbacks to the years where they grew up together. And over time, we kind of see how Bryony's understanding of different situations wasn't accurate and how Tevin has actually been looking out for her and doing some things behind the scenes that she never expected. I got an advanced copy of this from the publisher, but I had to get the final deluxe version because these sprayed edges are just simply gorgeous. And I love the cover of this one. Plus, it's a book that I know I'm going to want to reread, especially when the next book in the series comes out. Another thriller that I just recently finished, I read it on my Kindle, was called Everyone is Lying to You by Joe Piazza, I think is the author. And that was like a 3-star middle of the road book for me. It was about an influencer. So it's supposed to be this kind of dark side of influencing thriller. And she's a very popular momfluencer and her husband is brutally murdered. So throughout the book, we're kind of wondering, was it her that did it or was it someone else? And the investigation is being led by the police as well as one of her former friends who is now a journalist. And she recently met up with this influencer and is kind of following all these cryptic clues to try and find out what actually happened. So that concept sounded really interesting, and I love seeing like the dark side of influencing and what goes on behind the scenes. But ultimately, this thriller was just too slow as well. It felt like it took forever to uncover what was actually happening in this scenario, and ultimately the payoff with how it all went down just I didn't think it was that shocking or that interesting. It was kind of easy to determine who had actually done it and what the reasons were. So it was another thriller that just ended up being not quite up to my expectations. So if you have any heart-pounding, fast-paced, can't stop turning the pages thrillers, please let me know in the comments because I am desperate to find a good one. I also quickly wanted to share some of the book mail that I've got recently. My book of the month box this year was incredible. I was so excited about the selections this month. The first one that I got is called How Freaking Romantic by Emily Harding. And I pretty much got this one sight unseen without having any idea what the book was about, because Emily Harding is part of a writing duo who I adore. She writes with Audrey Bellezza, and so far they have written two contemporary Jane Austen retellings. They were called Emma of 83rd Street and Elizabeth of East Hampton. So they were takes on Emma and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And they were phenomenal contemporary romances. There were so many cute little nods to Jane Austen's original works that any fan of hers is going to absolutely love. But they felt fresh and new, and they were a little bit spicy. So it was just a really solid romance retelling. So with that in mind, when I saw Emily was going out on her own and writing her own book, I knew I had to pick it up. So the actual concept of this one does sound really good once I read through the description. It's about Beatrice, who's kind of dealing with the disillusion of her two closest friends' marriage. So she is a little bit feisty, and she ends up storming into the office of their attorney, Nathan, and tells him exactly what he can do with his divorce demands. She thinks she's fighting for those that she cares most about. However, this contentious interaction ends up having a negative effect on her own life when Nathan walks into her New York University law office as a newly minted adjunct professor and her new colleague. Bea cannot get over how much she detests Nathan, but they end up working together, having weekly meetings, networking events, and going on walks, and she hates that this growing relationship with him starts to turn into something that she actually looks forward to. Plus, over time, more truths emerge about this divorce between her two closest friends, and she realizes that she might not have had all the facts at the time. So now she might be left forced to choose between her closest friends or her own happy ever after. Bea sounds like a really powerful, fun, and feisty character, so I'm excited to see how this one turns out. The other book I got in my Book of the Month box was called The Compound by Aileen Rao, and this was chosen as one of the Celebrity Book Club books for I think July. I can't remember which one it was, but it is about a reality show that kind of goes wrong. I think books set in the reality show world are just phenomenal. I find it so fascinating to see the peek behind the scenes and what really goes on with these sort of shows. So our main character in this one is Lily, and she's like a bored, beautiful 20-something, and she wakes up with 19 other contestants on this remote island. So she's part of this TV show where cameras are constantly watching them, and they are able to get things if they complete different challenges or tasks. So it might be beauty products, or it could be food or other necessities, but all of it is forced through these competitions and these challenges so that they can get rewards. Lily is loving this at the start because she has nothing to go back to and it's actually some excitement in her life. But as the competition between all the different contestants intensifies, it becomes more difficult to distinguish between desire and desperation. The producers keep raising the stakes on these challenges for the contestants, and it forces them into upsetting and sometimes even dangerous situations. So now for Lily, the line between playing the game and actually surviving starts to blur. She knows if she makes it to the end, she will receive prizes beyond her wildest dreams, but at this point, she's not sure what it's going to take to actually get there. I love that this book is short and sweet. I feel like it's going to be snappy and to the point. It's less than 300 pages, and it sounds like it will be fast-paced with this kind of intensifying situation, so I cannot wait to dive into it. The last book that I wanted to share that I got recently is called All This Could Be Yours by Hank Phillip P. Ryan, and a huge thank you to Minotaur Books for sending this one my way. This is a thriller, but it's set in the publishing world. It's about an author named Tessa Calloway who's on a whirlwind book tour for her most recent instant bestseller. She's in a different city every night, interacting with thousands of fans who love her book and being cheered on by her husband and her kids at home in their brand new dream house. However, she realizes something's chilling as this book tour goes on. It seems like someone is stalking her and obsessed with not only sabotaging her career, but also destroying her entire family. Tessa realizes that a decision she made long ago might be coming back to haunt her, and what felt like a deal with the devil at the time might have consequences for her life now. If she can't untangle who is threatening to expose her secrets, she might lose everything: her career, her family, and possibly even her life. I always love books about writers, so that's why I'm particularly interested in this thriller. Also, I'm so excited because the author actually included little notes throughout this book on Post-its about what they were writing at the time and what they were thinking. And I think that's just such a cool addition to this arc. So I can't wait to get to those little add-ons too. So that wraps up my quick mid-month update. Let me know in the comments what you're currently reading or if you've had any 5-star reads or DNFs recently. And stay tuned next time. Make sure you're following on YouTube or following my podcast to get all of my latest bookish updates.